Are Magic the Gathering players ready for 2025 for what Wizards of the Coast has in store for your collection this year? Well, in today's video, we are going to discuss the market as it stands and what you can do to help prepare yourself for Magic the Gathering products and Wizards of the Coast in 2025. As we get ready for 2025, and of course the new onslaught of products that will come from Wizards of the Coast, how how well prepared are players for what's about to happen? Welcome back, everyone. MTG Moxman here, and thank you again for hanging out with me on my channel today. Now, when we're thinking about what you should be expecting in 2025, let's not forget we've got Magic the Gathering Arena. It's a very popular format, and it does continue to grow with popularity. We're expecting some changes coming to that. We've heard Commander could be coming. We know that Wizards of the Coast wants to expand digital marketing. So be prepared for things to head that direction. If not in early 2025, well, by late 2025, they're probably going to have some goals, some stretch goals to talk to us about. Now, we also have to understand that if the dominance of online digital formats continues to grow, there will be a hit to the physical card market. This happened in the past. We had a real shift in player sentiment toward having physical Magic cards versus online digital Magic cards, and it hurt the market. And Wizards of the Coast did step back from this. They took a linebacker's seat and said, how much damage did we do? How much did we run over people? And what are we going to have to do to backstep this? And that is something they're going to be considering as they continue to expand into the digital marketing field, because let's face it, a lot of money is made in paper Magic. So they're going to be checking ways on how they are impacting you and what they can do to still draw out the value of what they can see in the online arena platform, right? Like it's crazy to think about, but it's definitely something I know a lot of bigger businesses are honing in on. So it's something to consider. Now, the other thing we have to think about is they want to get standard back on track. We've seen modern continue to be a nice mainstay, although a pricey format to play in. And the rise of Commander is not nearly done. When we think about Commander as a product lineup, Wizards of the Coast has expanded a lot into this arena, and they are getting used to being the entire rules committee domineering force that is overtaking everything inside of Commander. They are going to take it slow and steady, but they are going to move that direction. Now, how does that impact your card collecting? How does that impact the cards you now currently hold? Well, when you think about secret layers that Wizards of the Coast creates, when you think about how they produce commander decks and what premium products they also add into the onslaught of products they give us that are geared toward commander. Think of things from double flip trip masters, but also even standard products that seem to have key cards geared to commander. With the amount of value players have in their commander decks nowadays, it's not really a bad thing to think about how much value you could lose when cards get reprinted. It's always something that should be in the back of your mind. As much as you enjoy these cards, a lot of players have now kind of failed to recognize just how much value they're sitting on when they look at their collections. When you think of what just happened with the One Ring, but also what happened with Mox Opal being unbanned, players have now got a real understanding that Wizards of the Coast can flip a switch and cause crazy things to happen. And that has caused certain segments of the population to understand their collections are vulnerable and they need to shift to probably having less of massive playset collecting as more opposed to more singular cards like they do for Commander now. And with the rise of Commander continuing to grow, you're going to see a lot more people honing in on single copies of cards or less than a playset of four, which means there'll probably be a lot more cards hitting the market this year as Wizards of the Coast gives us new products or new cards geared to Commander that may replace some of the cards you already know or add more reprints in to bring down the pricing point of some of these cards. So if you're sitting on a large stash of cards, you might want to liquidate a few just to kind of backtrack your value and maybe have some cash on hand in case something crazy comes along. Now, the other thing is we've got things like Aether Drift coming down the pipeline. You got Final Fantasy, you got Marvel. Think about the new card mechanics they could be adding to the game. Think about the ways some of these card mechanics could interact with already existing mechanics. making some of them obsolete or depowering them so much that you really can't use them the same way you used to. Now, they can always reverse this years later, but it does take time. So if you're sitting on strong positions of certain cards that could become obsolete or you think are kind of already vulnerable to an attack of being reprinted or just redesigned, these are cards you might want to move on. These are cards you might want to shift out of your market space and just make a little bit of a dent in not having such a strong position in one certain type. I mean, think about when you're investing in your collection, you got to keep things moving. You got to keep shifting things forward and letting yourself kind of diversify into new product lineups. Now, this is no different even for reserve list cards. The reserve list is going to take a hit this year. As much as I love the reserve list and the sales have kind of been upticking right now, that's because of all kinds of deals and end of year things and people trading in a lot of products like the Mox Opal to get a whole bunch of cash value, which is allowing them to buy into reserve list cards. But there are lots of reserve list cards that will continue to fall in value, making them vulnerable to buyouts and allowing the shift in dominance of people who thought they had a good position and realize that it's just another big block of market cards. If you are collecting for the sake of collecting and you don't care if that collection goes to zero, then this part probably doesn't matter to you. But if you're a player who is hoping to flip these at some other point to year, let's face it, 2025 is not going to be your year. I see Wizards of the Coast expanding into these new product lineups. And again, now that they control Commander, they're going to be geared on working on brackets. And that doesn't really include the reserve list unless it's an ancillary thing that allows them to expose some kind of vulnerability to reserve list cards, which means, you're going to use Time Twister. They've got Time Spiral. Maybe they come up with some other card that can work with those that makes an advantage to it, but only if that just as a happenstance continues down that pathway. It's not something you can expect to see happening in 2025. I know I wouldn't be after what we've seen this year. Wizards of the Coast has taken a really aggressive stance on trying to generate income for the company. And they are moving in the direction of speeding things up like they always have in the last couple of years. They're not producing as many products, but the products they're producing don't have as much value. When we look at all the things we had lined up this year, Bloomberg was a fantastic set. We've had good lineups, but we haven't seen a lot of secondary market value in many of these cards, which brings us back to the end. Your collection in 2025, it could be vulnerable to reprints or to being outmoded. This year with Marvel, with Final Fantasy, I want you guys to take that moment, look at your collection, see if you're really set with the cards you have, or if you have too many of certain cards, you should probably liquidate a few, get them off the books, and allow you to expand a new part of your chapter collection into 2025 with all the cards we have coming down the pipeline. There is going to be a lot. It doesn't seem like it right now. We're all enjoying this Duskmore and all this great stuff at the end of the year, but trust me, there's a lot more going on. There's a lot in that backdrop that you can just see because we've seen previous years. The bannings here at the end, the unbannings of other cards, makes me wonder what else is coming, and lets you know that there's uncertainty in the air for a lot of players and they're starting to feel it. I can see it at the LGS level. I can see it in the conversations with collectors at the playgroup tables. How do you guys feel about that? Drop some comments in the comment section. You need to make sure that the apocalypse that's coming in 2025, and there's always one every year, you have to make sure you're ready to weather the storm and come out on top, or at least minimize the damage to the collection you have right now. Thanks again for hanging out with me for today's video. Protect that collection. Make sure you're aware of the trends that are happening, and I will see you tomorrow for another video. Shop smart, shop smart. I hope you have your nachos and cheese ready. You're kicking back and you're ready for a little bit of action today, because you know what? This is the patrons, the YouTube membership members. These are the people who make it happen here each and every day. Without them, well, we wouldn't be doing this. We'd be sitting around. We'd be watching some TV, maybe checking out a hockey game. True Canadian stuff. Guys, thanks again to my members. Thanks again to the patrons. We'll see you tomorrow with another video. Welcome back to the Backstage Pass. You're stepping into the Thunderdome. I hope you're ready for it, because as much as we like to spend money on our Magic cards, on this hobby, these cards do get outmoded, they do get replaced, and they do get reprinted if it's not a reserve list card. This is your Ramble Jamble, and it's a serious topic. 2025 is likely going to see a lot of cards get reprinted. There's going to be new card mechanics coming in from either Marvel or Final Fantasy that will probably shift the gamescape a little bit, and we have to be prepared for that, which means the idea of people sitting on large positions of cards that are about to get outmoded always makes me want to bring it to people's attention that you could lose a lot of value, but at the same time, right now, those cards are still high, and you may be able to unload some of those cards, unload them to the store, unload them to other people who want just 1 or 2 copies, and you diversify out the damage control to yourself. I understand not everyone's going to go for this, but too many times we hear about somebody who's got 50 copies of something, they get just nailed, and the card was at 25 bucks, and it drops to 5 bucks. There's a chance here. There's a chance to come out on top, to come out a winner, when you protect yourself and diversify your investing collection of Magic the Gathering, because you can call it just collecting, but when there's money on hand and you have no reason to have 40, 50, 60 copies of something, this may be your chance to cash in a little bit of value and get yourself ahead of the game. I hope people take this video kind of seriously, because this is that time of year where there's a lot of action going on, but this year more so than others. When Wizards of the Coast ban that card, unban that card, bring action in. When we saw Demi-Lich and the Arc-like Phoenix sales take off like a rocket, new deck designs coming around, values created out of thin air from bulk rares, and other cards shifting from $100 like the Jeweled Lotus down to 30 bucks. These are massive, massive market shifts, and there were people out there who may have had 20 Jeweled Lotuses, one for each of their commander decks, and they just got creamed. This is that time to kind of rejig your plan. Think about what you want to do and how many things you need to keep of these prime high-end cards that Wizards of the Coast is likely going to cash in some equity on. It just makes perfect sense to a company like this, and that means you guys need to be prepared. Either way, thanks again for hanging out. Thanks for being here at the end of the video. And you know what? I think I made a bit of a mess today, but that's okay. I will clean this up. We had a good time at the live stream. Sorry if you guys missed it. And I will see you guys. We got videos to do this week. There's a lot to talk about as we ram ourselves into 2025. What did I do? I feel like I dropped something, but I didn't. I didn't put the new one up here. I have to see what happens tomorrow, but we'll see. Guys, thanks again.